Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we are going to study the price effects of the fall in price of a commodity which is a given good. Actually, we haven't studied in our AS level what type of given good it is. So you might be knowing that there is a type of good which is called inferior good. When we studied income elasticity of demand in our AS level, so we studied inferior good. So inferior good is that which has negative relationship with income of the consumer. When his income increases and he buys less of a commodity, we say this is called inferior good. So inferior good is that which has negative income effect due to changes in the real income. So when price of a commodity decreases, real income of the consumer will increase. So instead of buying more like a normal good, now consumer opts the equilibrium point where he buys less of the commodity which is inferior, and one type of inferior good is given good. Giffen Good is a good which is a type of inferior good in which income effect, a fall in the price of the commodity, will have negative consumption, like the consumer will decrease the consumption of that commodity due to increase in his real income. Okay, now in that case income effect which is negative, but it is stronger than the substitution effect. Substitution effect, I gave you the full demonstration about substitution and income effects of a normal good. So substitution means when price of commodity falls, consumer substitute it more with the other commodity. All right. So he will buy more of commodity X when price of X is falling as compared to price of Y. So we say substitution effect is that which is positive for both the goods, whether it is normal or given. But in case of inferior good, what happens? Income effect will become negative. So income effect, when price of the commodity decreases, the real income of consumer will increase, and due to increase in the real income, when consumer decides to consume less of that commodity, we say this is called an inferior good. So here given good is that, given good, it is a type of inferior good, or we say it is also an inferior good, and when its price falls, when its price falls, what happens? Its substitution effect is positive, like it is comparatively low price than other commodity. So substitution effect will say, okay, buy more of this commodity, as it is having lower price than commodity where price hasn't changed. So its income effect, when his income increases in real terms, when his income increases in real terms, when price of this commodity decreases, so real income of consumer will increase, but income effect says you are becoming more richer than before, so you should not be consuming more of this commodity, switch to another good. So its income effect is negative, income effect that is negative, and it is stronger than the substitution effect, stronger than substitution effect. Now finally the consumer will consume less of this commodity when its price goes down. Therefore the demand of the given good will not be downward sloping like the normal demand curve, but it will be positively sloped like we have the supply curve. So it is positively sloped. When the given good price increases, consumer will buy more of it, even his real income is decreasing. So when its price goes down, he buys less of this commodity as it becomes more inferior to him. So its demand curve will become positively sloped, not a normal demand curve. Okay, now I'm diagrammatically analyzing the situation which is happening with the Giffen good. Now I'm taking X as a Giffen good. So it is a Giffen good, like it is an inferior good. So we say this is a consumer's budget line, where all the bundles lying along this budget line, they are equally affordable by the consumer within his income and the prices of the two goods. He can consume anywhere. So budget line, I told you many times that it tells us the affordability of the consumer within his income, how much of both the goods he could afford. So this could be shown by the budget line, which is downward sloping. If consumer increases the consumption of X, he has to decrease Y along this budget line. So here we find the consumer equilibrium is the point where his indifference curve is making a tangency condition with the indifference curve, the highest attainable indifference curve is making a tangency condition with his budget line. So these are the number of units. Suppose we say 5 units of X are consumed by the consumer when he is having price of X, which is price of X right now, it is $2 and price of Y is now $1. So he buys 5 units of X maybe at this price of X and buys whatever the quantity, you can say 10 units of X are purchased, but only 2 units of Y are purchased at this price level. So his income that can be shown by $12. So this is the information we are having when consumer is affording. He is having income of $12, he spends $10 on commodity X, whereas $2 will be spent on commodity Y. Okay, so he remains at equilibrium E1. So what happens when budget line, when the price of X goes down? When price of X goes down, what happens? The budget line will have pivotal outward shift. What is this? Now consumer's budget line will have pivotal shift. So it shows that now in real terms, consumer can afford more of X. More of X can be purchased when he is buying 0 of Y. Previously, he was able to buy 6 units of X. Now he can buy 12 units when he is not buying even a single unit of Y commodity. So I say when price of X falls to $1, so he should buy more of it like a normal good. But finally consumer moves to the left of his equilibrium, previous equilibrium E1. Okay, now see over here. This is the new indifference curve where consumer, I write over here equilibrium 3 because I have to show substitution effect as well. So at E3, you can see instead of buying more of this commodity like a normal good, he buys only 2 units of X. As its price has gone down, like price of X goes down from $2 to $1. So instead of buying more of this commodity, consumer finally buys less. This is the final effect of the fall in price of X. So how much is the substitution effect? In order to see the substitution effect says this new budget line, which is resulted due to fall in the price of X, and it shows that real income of consumer has increased. If we take away that increase in the real income of the consumer to ask him to consume along the previous indifference curve at new price level, that is $1. So how many units of Y he will be substituting with X? So in order to see the substitution effect, what we do, we shift this new budget line downward. Parallel downward shift will take place. As we say, we are taking some part of income from the consumer. So now this budget line will have a parallel downward shift. So this new budget line, when it is shifting downward, it will be making a tangency condition with the previous indifference curve at this point. I should say like this. This is the indifference curve. I say. So at this point, substitution effect says, okay, buy more of this commodity. Instead of X1, you move to X2. So this is called substitution effect. Okay. So from X1 to X2, this is called, we say, suppose there are the 7 units, we say here consumer buys 6 units of X. So 1 unit says, increase the consumption of X as it is becoming lower price than commodity Y. So this movement from E1 to E2, this shows us the substitution effect, which is positive again. When price of X goes down, substitution effect says that consumer should consume more of it as it is lower price than commodity Y. So he should substitute Y with X along the previous indifference curve. So the welfare of consumer does not change if he consumes along previous indifference curve at new price level. Okay. Now, finally, consumer is not consuming at E2, but finally he is consuming at E3. Where he is consuming? At E3. So from this X2 to X3, this is X3 now actually. This is the income effect. You see, substitution effect says increase consumption by 1 unit. But income effect says, as you have become richer, consume less of this. Your real income has increased. So income effect is -4. Instead of consuming 6 units, he is consuming 2 units now. So the income effect is -4. That is decreasing the consumption of Giffen Good. So income substitution effect is saying, here we say substitution effect that is positive, which is increase consumption by 1 unit, and income effect that is negative, which here we says decrease consumption by 4 units. So if we see this number -4, the 4 units consumption will decrease for this commodity. We say now the income effect is negative, but this number is greater than the substitution effect number. So income effect is negative and it is stronger than this income effect is negative and it is stronger than the substitution effect. Therefore, a Giffen Good will decrease the consumption of the commodity whenever its price has gone down. Now I will draw the diagram again to show you the demand curve of the Giffen Good, how it is positively sloped. Okay, that will be a rough diagram. Now I'm going to make it more clear to you people. Here, this is the equilibrium 1. Consumer is consuming X1 commodity. This is the optimum consumption when price does not change for any of the commodity. When price of X decreases, so this budget line will rotate outward. Okay. Now consumer is going here at new indifference curve. This is the final consumption. If we draw the price and quantity demand of X, quantity of X and price of X. When price of X was $2, he was consuming these number of units, X1. So when price goes down to $1, so he is buying less. This is the new point. This is point A, you can say this is point B. If we join these 2 points, what we get? A demand curve of X, which is a Giffen Good. What it is? A Giffen Good demand curve. You can see the Giffen Good is having positively sloped demand curve. When its price goes down, consumer buys less of it, and when its price increases, then consumer will buy more of it. You might be seeing some of the goods which are showing us the status symbol, or sometimes we say the ornaments. People are buying more of them when their prices are increasing. BMW car or Mercedes Benz, people are buying more of them as their prices are still increasing. Why? They are showing, they are representing the status symbol of the people. So there can be the two ranges of the Giffen goods, the upper class, the upper price Giffen good, where the goods are showing what? The status symbol. People are spending more on those goods which are having ostentatious level, like they are showing us that they are increasing the social status of a consumer, that when its price is increasing, he buys more. And sometimes we find the inferior goods like the vegetables. When a vegetable is having lower price, the seller says people are less buying it. When they are heavy, their prices are increasing, so people are buying more of them. So Giffen goods, or we say the shares market, the securities market in stock exchange, the buyers of shares, they are buying more shares when prices are increasing for those shares, because they expect that these prices will further increase in near future and they will be able to gain, they will be able to earn a capital gain. Like capital gain means the difference between the selling price of a share and the buying price of a share. So in all these cases, the demand curve will be positively sloped. So when it is positively sloped, we say this is a Giffen good demand curve. So finally, consumer consumes here. So in order to see the substitution effect, you can see we have to shift this budget line downward, a parallel downward shift that will give us what? A point of tangency at new point of the previous indifference curve. This is X2. So this says, okay, this increase the consumption of commodity X, but income effect says buy less. As your real income has increased, you should be consuming less of this commodity instead of increasing it. So this demand curve is a Giffen goods demand curve. If I say, what will be the market condition of this demand curve of Giffen good? You can see this is a supply curve of a Giffen good. So this is going to be the demand curve. This is the demand of a Giffen good. So here it is equilibrium. Usually we studied that when price is going above the equilibrium, there will be a surplus. But here what is happening? When the price of a Giffen good is increasing, what is happening to this equilibrium? We find a shortage. At higher price, the Giffen good is facing a shortage. Its demand is higher than its supply. And we studied, this is the normal equilibrium we studied in our AS level. Normally, market is having this equilibrium. We say when price is increasing, there is a surplus. And when price is lower, there will be the shortage. Okay, this is the shortage. More is demanded than supply. But what is happening? There is an opposite case. When price is higher, there is shortage. Quantity demand is more than quantity supply. Or when we say its price is going below the equilibrium, then there will be a surplus of this commodity. Supply is more than demand. So we find one very interesting feature of the Giffen good. Once this market is away from equilibrium, this is the equilibrium point. When Giffen good is away from equilibrium, when its price increases or decreases, here we have to take the price now, price of X rather than Y. So we say when its price, when Giffen good market is going away from the equilibrium, it will never come back to the equilibrium point again. Why? Above the equilibrium, there is shortage. So more consumers are demanding this product than its supply. So its shortage will be further increasing. And once it is below the equilibrium, there is going to be a surplus. It will decrease further its price, because in case of surplus, the price further goes down, and in case of shortage, price will further goes up. So we say Giffen good is that good in which we have income and substitution effects. Substitution effect of fall in price of Giffen good will say us that consume more of it, but income effect, as the real income of consumer is increasing, so in that case the consumer will be buying less of this product, then it becomes a negative income effect. Now I give you another type of good, that is an inferior good. Like it is also inferior, but it is not given. Why it is not given? Although its income effect is negative, but it is not stronger than the substitution effect. Here I'm now writing an inferior good. It is only inferior good, not a given good. Okay. So what it is, the inferior good. I want to conclude this consumer behavior today because I want to have start off the new topic by tomorrow or by the next class. Inferior good is that where substitution effect is positive, income effect is negative, but substitution effect is stronger than the income effect. It is negative and it is positive, so substitution effect says consume more. Okay, now see over here what is happening. X and Y. What is happening now? We say this is a consumer's budget line. This is the original equilibrium point when price does not change for any commodity. This is E1. This is X1. So when price goes down, budget line rotates outward. We are quite familiar with it. So finally consumer is in equilibrium at this point. This is E3. Okay, E3 it is, not E2. So finally he consumes it. But what is the substitution effect? If we shift this budget line downward to make a tangency condition with the previous indifference curve, so it will show us, sorry, this is not a parallel line. We should have a parallel downward shift rather than non-parallel, because price remains same. We are only taking away some part of the income of the consumer in order to see the substitution effect. Okay, now this is the substitution effect E2. From E1 to E2, it says buy more of this commodity as it has relatively lower price than commodity Y. But income effect is here. This is X3. Okay. Now income effect, now substitution effect, you can say these are the 4 units. Increase consumption of this commodity by 4 units, substitution effect says, but consumer says buy less. Now income effect is now buy less. Now it is negative, but it is -1. If consumer was consuming 3 units, now he is consuming ultimately 4 units of X, 4 units of X, but substitution effect says you should be buying 7 units. 7 units, but instead of 4 units to increase, consumer is increasing the consumption of this commodity by 1 unit. Although its income effect is negative, but it is not stronger than the substitution effect. That is why we say this is also a type of inferior good, because its income effect is negative, but it is weaker than the substitution effect. Substitution effect is now stronger. So Giffen good is that in which income effect is stronger, it is negative, and it is stronger than the substitution effect. But inferior good is that where substitution effect that is positive and income effect is negative, but substitution effect is stronger than the income effect. The final consumption, although it has increased than the previous level of consumption, but income effect is still negative. It says you are becoming richer in real terms, so you should buy less. So income effect is still negative, but it is weaker than the substitution effect. Then we say it is an inferior good. It is not a Giffen good. But when income effect is negative and it is stronger than the substitution effect, then we say it is a Giffen good. So here the demand curve, it will be it will be a little bit steeper than the normal. Like if the normal demand curve is having this shape where we have a flatter demand, so it will be a little bit steeper than a normal. It is also a demand which is normal demand curve, because due to fall in price, its consumption is finally increasing, but it is not increasing greater than the substitution effect, but it is less than the substitution effect. That's why it is going to be a steeper demand curve than the good which we studied in a normal demand curve, where income effect was stronger than the substitution effect. So this is about our consumer behavior. We concluded our topic of consumer behavior. You might be knowing this ordinal approach, where we used indifference curve and budget line approach in order to analyze the consumer equilibrium point. So all these are showing us what? That consumer will be in equilibrium when the minor utility ratio is equal to their price ratio, and that could be found where budget line is making a tangency condition with the highest attainable indifference curve. Instead of saying that consumer satisfaction or utility can be made in terms of numbers, we say the consumer utility or preferences can be shown by using indifference curve, whereas his affordability can be shown by using the budget line, and where the affordability of consumer, like budget line, is making a tangency condition with the highest attainable indifference curve, that will give us the consumer equilibrium point. Later on, we studied what is a normal good, where substitution and income effects of a normal good, they have been studied. We have drawn the demand curve of normal good, the demand curve of the Giffen good, and what is happening to the demand, to the equilibrium of the Giffen good. Once it is going away from the equilibrium, it does not come back. It never comes back to the previous equilibrium. And this is all. You can find some of the drawbacks of this ordinal approach, that every time when we buy the goods, are we equating our price ratio with our minor utility ratio? The used value or benefit value of the commodity can be higher than the price paid by a consumer. Like if one person is buying iPhone, so he is paying more than 100,000 rupees, 200,000 rupees. So at that time, his price paid will be higher than the minor utility of the product. But we say its minor utility is not staying at that. Its benefits, they are prolonging for more than 1 year. That's why the consumer is agreed upon to pay a high price for that commodity. So there can be different cases where consumer theory of indifference curve cannot be valued in real life, because how can we say the preferences of consumers can only be shown by indifference curve? These preferences can be revealed preferences as well. Consumers are again showing us the irrational behavior in the market due to massive advertisements by the producers in order to increase the demand of the product, and the producers are actually gaining the benefit of the irrational behavior of the consumers in the market. So consumers are not showing their rational behavior in the market when they are buying the goods. When their prices are falling, they can be buying the Giffen goods rather than the normal goods. So this is all about our consumer analysis by using both the approaches, consumer ordinal approach and cardinal approach. Both are telling us that the minor utility ratio should equal to price ratio, but one was saying that utility could be measured in terms of numbers, and another is saying that utility cannot be measured in terms of numbers. We can only rank the goods. So that's all about our consumers analysis. In our next class, if you are having questions, please put up the questions in my WhatsApp number. I will be dealing with all your queries by tomorrow's class. But if you don't have any questions, you don't come up, so I will be starting the producer behavior in my next class. That's up to you. If you raise the questions and you send it to me, and then I will be answering them in my next class, which is coming tomorrow. So if you don't have questions, I will be going through the producer behavior, inshallah. Thank you.